Well then, for one final time, we return to the Czech circuit of Brno. It's been a fantastic run in the MX-5s, in the KTMs as well, but now it's time for the big series. It's the GT3 Pro Series in the RaceRoom Rank Championship of 2023, ready to go for an hour's worth of thrilling racing. Obviously, qualifying under the way. Big names in it, Julian Kunze, Mariusz Zabdir, the Mackenbergs as well. It is going to be a thrill ride all the way through, I have no doubt. In the commentary booth, it's myself, Lewis McGlade, alongside Darragh Thacker, as it was back on Saturday with booted Cam Roger out of the commentary booth. We don't need him and his nonsense throughout the running of this broadcast. Should be a fun one though, Darragh. This is it's a fun little track. Although I do remember your KTM race being quite patient for the opening portion, and it really built up to quite the crescendo.
Yeah, you and Illyria and I had a little while to get going in that race, but it really did heat up towards the end. Couple laps of fantastic action at the end of the race, and hopefully we can see quite a lot of that during the hour-long race today. Familiar names, of course, in this series. You see Luciano Wittfurt, Mariusz Zabdir, and Noj as well in the top category of drivers here. Marvin Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg, they're both here as well, and drivers that we've seen all in the last week in the KTM GTX last Wednesday and on Saturday at the 2 Hours of Road America as well. So some names that we will be familiar with, and we'll have to see how they get on tonight.
Yeah, of course, when it comes to that, the big story really is that our championship leader in the GT3 Pro Series is not here, that being Philip Dreiss. So Luciano Wittfurt, Marvin Mackenberg, Mariusz Zabdir, those will be the focus heading into the third and penultimate round of the championship here at Brno. Of course, in 3 weeks' time, we'll be heading to the Nordschleife. In a week's time, we'll be heading to the Nordschleife for the season finale of the MX-5 Cup as well. And of course, it's a return to Czechia. With Brno, because obviously we did Autodrom Most to start out the season, that round being won by Luciano Wittfurt. Last time out it was Cody Nikola Latkowski that took victory at Road America, who is going to put their name onto the top here at Brno. That's where I'm very much interested in who's going to do it. I'm not so sure as to who it's going to be, to be fair. At this point, looking at that entry list, I'd almost lean my way towards someone like Julian Kunze, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of drivers on this list this evening who you could definitely put in a good shout for winning this evening. But of course, last week in the KTMs, we saw that it took. Marvin Mackenberg led every single lap until the last when Wittfurt managed to sneak through. So, you know, if you're leading for a long time at Brno, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be leading at the flag, and that is going to be critical for some of these guys. But, you know, the times are really tight in qualifying, but it's just going to be a case of who can keep it on the track. Wide track here at Brno, so many lines you can take through lots of the corners. Side by side is quite easy to do. Definitely through that first sector, through turn 1, 2, 3, and up towards turn 4 as well. So hopefully some good racing. Hopefully a few surprise moves towards the end of the race.
Yeah, and you can see on there the kind of one of the main characteristics of the circuit is the undulation up and down the circuit goes, particularly down in that final sector before you begin the climb up through the final couple of chicanes. Like you say, big wide circuit, just 12 corners over the 5.4 kilometres, so plenty of action to be had. Of course, the cars racing is the GT3 Pro Series, so you know it by now. They're weirdly enough GT3, so we've got Audi R8, we've got the BMW M4, Bentley Continental, Callaway Corvette, Ferrari 488, McLaren 720, and then of course the Mercedes AMG GT3, as well as the Porsche 911 GT3, the 2019 variant, and not the 992 that we were racing obviously a little while ago. We were racing back in Road America in the 2-hour ranked race, which was plenty exciting enough, so much so that once again I got my call to the line completely wrong as I tripped up over myself. It was so exciting. Hopefully we'll have something in the very similar vein as to this, because I made the same mistake when Cody Nikola Latkowski came across the line in Road America. I'm sure we've got a thrilling race. We'll talk about the entry list just a touch, because like you say, you've got drivers like Luciano Wittfurt, drivers who we expect to really head back up again to the top of the championship after the likes of Philip Dreiss not being here for this round. A couple of names that we haven't seen before in the championship. Majan Bork-Rosicskis being one of those, not really seen too much of. Joshua Ten Volder, Emmanuel Aman, 3 drivers that we've not really seen too much of the RaceRoom Rank Championship, as well as elsewhere. And then obviously you've got Jose Luis Gamero and Sinan Gunay, 2 drivers that you might recognise from various other places in RaceRoom competition. Great entry list. of course, and a lot of names that we expect to see up toward the front, including, as I said before, Julian Kunze, who started the season quite well in Autodrom Moss, had some really, really good pace, went on a slightly different strategy, pitted in a bit early, which we did question on that day because it's a tight and twisty circuit. This one being very different, you can actually get some moves done around here. So I actually think the earlier pit stop is actually very, very viable around here.
It's one of those tracks, I mean, like we mentioned, it's wide. It's very wide. There are so many different lines you can take through quite a lot of the corners, especially through 1, 2, 3 and into 4, because there is so much. I mean, you can see it on your screen now. The size of the track is incredible. You can fit maybe 4, even 5 cars across in some parts, so there's really a lot of room to try and make your moves, especially if you've got to make those moves on a few back markers if you do pit early. But you know, the likes of Julian Kunze, Sven and Marvin Mackenberg, who are 1, 2, 3, the Germans like to be at the top this week, don't they? But they will be looking at where they can make the moves during the race, and I'm sure for the likes of Marvin Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg, by doing the KTMs and the some of them the MX-5s, they'll be able to have raced around Brno a bit and seen where it's most opportunistic to make that move and where it's easy to defend, because of course that little bit of practice in the races can really pay dividends in a race like this.
Yeah, I mean, I will say the German thing is actually kind of an interesting thing to note, because they're looking very strong at the moment on racing, mostly based on the fact of, like, was it the top 6, or was it was 6 of the top 5 in qualifying in the Road America 2 hour that were German drivers, and then I think in the race it might have ended up being 6 in the race, the top 6, certainly the top 5 or so, all being of German origin. It's interesting to note it's that the Germans do particularly go strong, as well as Hungarians, and we've not seen too many Hungarians at the front as we would have done, say, 2 or 3 years ago, with the likes of Balázs, of David Nagy, of Gergo Baldi, of course, drivers in that kind of ilk that were really, really strong and up toward the front. Either way, we'll stop our waffling because we've got a qualifying session on. 21 minutes have been completed. There's 9 minutes left to go, and Julian Kunze is at the top. You said it was quite tight on the margins. Yes, that is true, but that is more so for everyone behind Julian Kunze. He's got nearly a third of a second over the rest of the field.
Yeah, it's an impressive time so far, and he really is putting his foot down. I mean, just behind him, I mean, you look at Marvin, Sven and Sinan Gunay, the two Mackenbergs and Gunay. I mean, there's only a quarter of a tenth in it between those 3 drivers, just behind Julian Kunze. So it really is tight around here. Starts might be important. Who can get the best start off the line? I mean, grab an inside line into turn 1, that can really set you up well for the run towards turn 4, that is. But you know, Zabdir moving up just about above the Mackenberg brothers, and he's showing some form, of course, off the back of winning in class at the Toyota Road America at the weekend. He is flowing with confidence, and time's proving it up to P2 now.
Yeah, decent first sector here from Marvin Mackenberg. Of course, that's McLaren versus Mercedes, though, as we now head through this central section up towards the end of the second sector. Up by around 300ths of a second is Marvin Mackenberg. The two Mackenbergs both taking the same car. Both McLarens, though, we do see them sometimes jumping in the likes of Bentleys, but again, Mariusz Zabdir returning to the 720S that he was famed for in years past on the RaceRoom platform. We've seen him many a time taking on that, so it's nice to see him back in. We've seen him jumping like Ferraris and things, Bentleys and things like that, but now it's good. I always associate Mariusz Zabdir with a 720, although not the one that he's in. He's in a blue and black one, and this normally it's the black and gold one that we see him in so much. Losing a little bit of time in the second sector there is Marvin Mackenberg. It should be good enough to maybe move himself up onto the front row of the grid once again. I'm not so sure it's going to be able to challenge Julian Kunze unless it's very strong in the final sector.
I mean, at the final sector here, of course, there are these 2 left-right combinations, both 90 degrees, and this is the second one. You can see the pit lane just entering or exiting the track at the final corner, and then you can see Marvin Mackenberg run to the line. This was a good time, and it is a very good time. Goes up to P2, and he finds himself on the front row of the grid. Of course, he had the good start at the start of the KTM race. I hate to keep mentioning it, but Marvin Mackenberg was there. He made the good start. He didn't get pole, but he made use of that traction, and he held on to the lead for quite a while. So he might be looking to use the same strategy once again. But his brother Sven isn't going to give him an easy run here, because he is also improving on the time, and he's only a tenth behind at the moment.
Yeah, quite like the livery on Sven Mackenberg's car. Certainly would subscribe to that one as he heads his way up the hill into the final sector. First and second, again, it's looking okay. I'm actually not so sure if this is going to be a major improvement or so heading into that final complex. At the moment, the sector time's kind of leaning towards being around about 3/10 off of the pole, which is about where he is. So I think he might actually stay in third position behind Mariusz Zabdir again, unless an absolutely mega final sector comes across the line. And like you say, no actual improvement. Sinan Gunay as well, also in tow. Matthew Heaven's actually having a really good qualifying session at the moment in 6th. Luciano Wittfurt, previous championship leader, of course, the driver that sits second in the championship, with the championship leader not being here. Not looking so strong in this at the moment, just 12th position. Hopefully this lap time will move him up somewhere inside the top 10.
Yeah, because he needs to get it together quite fast. Of course, with all RaceRoom qualifying sessions, when the timer hits 0, that is the end of the session. You cannot finish your lap. But he does jump up to P7, so he's got a better lap time, and it's still not exactly where he'd want to be. He is behind Matthew Heaven still. But Luciano Wittfurt, he is a little bit further up. He'll have an hour in the race to try and find a few more positions, but no, it's not where he would want to be. He's a few positions behind some of the people he's fighting in the championship, looking at Mariusz Zabdir and Marvin Mackenberg, who are 3rd and 4th, but 2nd and 3rd of the drivers here this evening. So they're currently in a better position, and that championship might start to close up if Wittfurt isn't able to set that good lap time that he needs to set. Only 4 minutes left, so only time for a couple of laps to go, and it's really now or nothing for some of these guys, as Lapanek also going well at the moment in P8.
Yeah, Lapanek actually looking really decent. Obviously improving first sectors, kind of a couple of tenths down on Julian Kunze. Second sector, not too much behind that. Moves up to 7th position, does Lapanek. So now ahead of Luciano Wittfurt, but obviously behind Matthew Heaven. At the moment, you can see the split towards the top. There's a lot of Mercedes and a lot of McLarens as we approach the final couple of stints of various drivers. Mariusz Zabdir being the focus of our attention here. There is Matthew Heaven. Again, got to say, really solid qualifying session at the moment. And this first sector is actually right on the money. 600ths of a second slower than Julian Kunze as he comes through the middle sector. I think he might have actually just exceeded a little bit there, but I don't know. It's just disappeared from my time. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I think I just saw it on the screen. He just about extended off wide on the curb through that middle sector, but Sinan Gunay is not invalidated his lap time just yet. That's a lovely green machine there for the man currently in P5, but he won't be caring about that. I mean, he only needs 9 thousandths to put himself on that second row, but about 2.5 tenths to put him onto the front row. So a bit of work to do, but he'll dive down the hill now before he gets to the final sector, and have to see if he can pick up any of the time in the final few corners.
Whilst it is a very raceable circuit, I would say track position is still actually very, very important, mostly based on the fact of, let's say, for example, you qualify in 6th position. Well, you know, the top 3, top 4 generally around this circuit would actually kind of check out, mostly courtesy of the slipstream. Everyone's battling behind it, allows a top grouping to appear. So I would definitely want to be in the front 2 rows if I'm going to compete for victory today. I think that's where you really need to come into it. Obviously, 2 minutes and 50 seconds left to go. Blah 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 blah. Here comes the regular speech that we always have. That once the timer hits 0, the session will end. You do not get to finish your lap. You do not get to pass go. The session is over. Kunze is not improving. He's just kind of driving around at the moment, ticking off a couple of laps. Sinan Gunay is trying to improve, losing out a little bit of time in the second sector. But he only says, as you said, he only needs 9 thousandths. He hasn't found it yet, so remains in 5th position. Meanwhile, Mariusz Zabdir is actually looking pretty fast himself. First sector decent, second sector decent. This could put himself back on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, and that's important for his championship challenge, of course. Marvin Mackenberg, the man near the front, who he is in a fight with for the championship somewhat, so he'll definitely want to get ahead of him in this qualifying session in just a couple of corners to go. There's a few drivers as well, Luciano Wittfurt also improving, Matthew Heaven as well, so lots of drivers setting green times. This will be, I think, Zabdir's last attempt as he runs to the line. He can't find the time, loses it in that final sector, and that'll be his qualifying session over. But that is a purple sector I see, and it is. Sinan Gunay, half a tenth up in that first sector. Yeah, 2 purple sectors. Sinan Gunay's set 1. Obviously, Marvin Mackenberg set 1, both to the tune of 500ths of a second. And we've seen a couple of improvements in that first sector. I wonder if it's Julian Kunze's weakest one. Coming into the middle sector is where they all tend to lose time. The first of those is going to be Sinan Gunay. There is Marvin Mackenberg, the driver that's currently in 2nd position in this session.
as we head down towards the final moments. I don't see anyone that's really challenging for for Marvin Mackenberg's position, with the exception of Matthew Heaven, who's in the final sector now. He's in 6th position right now. He comes into that final sector. First sector's decent. It's only a couple of hundreds off. Second sector loses about a tenth and a half. But coming through that final sector, it could be good for Heaven to move his way up inside the top 4, maybe even onto the front row of the grid. What is it across the line? Only good enough for 5th. Meanwhile, Sinan Gunay and Marvin Mackenberg are both improving in ranges that might push them onto pole position.
Yeah, Sinan Gunay is slightly faster than Marvin Mackenberg through that second sector. He's only got a couple of corners to go. 1/10 will put him 4th now because they're so tight. Matthew Evan slotted between himself and Sven, but out of the final corner, can he pick up pole position? It looks like it might just be the front row, but as he runs to the line, he just about goes into P3 behind Marvin Mackenberg, who himself cannot just about beat Julian Kunze. So Kunze keeps that pole position to the end, but is incredibly close. 7 drivers within half a second, and pretty much 6 drivers within a third of a second. So incredibly tight in that qualifying session.
Yeah, really impressive there for Sinan Gunay to put himself into 3rd position in the final moments. Mariusz Zabdir in 4th. Of course, the 2 Absolute Motorsport teammates, they're now in 3rd and 4th. When it comes to those high up in the championship, Marvin Mackenberg, Mariusz Zabdir, and Luciano Wittfurt. For Wittfurt, it's a bit of a loss there. He's kind of a bit slower than we expect. We kind of see this quite a lot in qualifying from the Dutchman. It may not be his strongest suit, but when it comes to the race, we always see him marching to the front.
Yeah, we do. His racecraft is always incredibly good. I mean, I can just remember the KTM GTX race at Road America, where he found his way up the grid after making a mistake early on at that final corner. So we know he can race. He proves it in multiple series. So we'll just have to see if he can do it today. And he'll need to keep that championship challenge alive.
Yeah, you can see some of the other drivers a bit further down the order, the likes of Pitkovsky, we know can do quite well. Guides, we've seen some fantastic overtaking from Roland Sen as well in 21st position. Still some decent names down towards the back of the field. By the way, I was looking at the leaderboard times and the drivers taking part in leaderboards. Every round that we've done the participants on the leaderboard has actually increased. We started the season with just under 1,400. Then for round 2 we had 1,400, and then for round 3, for this round here, we've had nearly 1,500 drivers. This series keeps getting more and more popular by some of the biggest names in RaceRoom esports, which is fantastic to see, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, some of the racing we've seen over the past 8 weeks now. This is the 9th event in the ranked championship. Is really, all 9 weeks have been fantastic for racing, and I think every week more and more people have been willing to join because they can just see how much fun it is, how competitive it is, and how much fun you can have at some of these tracks. Especially when we went to Moss, we weren't exactly sure we'd get some fantastic racing, but we did. And everyone expected it at Road America. The fact that we had good numbers for Brno, which isn't necessarily a track that is used very much, especially on RaceRoom, just shows how much some of these some new people wanted to get involved in RaceRoom, and some returning faces as well. So it's only been a good thing, and it's great to see bigger grids, isn't it?
Yeah, certainly so. Well, warm-up has come to a close. We're about to head into the race. I'm going to ask you 5 seconds. Who's going to win the race? Go for it.
I'm going to go with Marvin Mackenberg.
Oh, good, because I'm going to go with Julian Kunze. I think this is Kunze's day. Marvin Mackenberg's your choice. Obviously, who knows? Luciano Wittfurt might work his way to the front. Maybe Sinan Gunay has got something to do as well. Ignore that, just dropping everything onto the floor in my room in excitement for the start of this race. That run down towards the first corner as we start that descent down the hill should be fantastic, but it means you've got to get off to a decent start, a clean start. No bogging down on the grid, no nothing like that. As we get ready for round 3 of the GT3 Pro Series in the RaceRoom Ranked Championship. The lights will come on and we are underway. Poor start there from Sinan Gunay. He might well get jumped by Mariusz Zabdir on the race down towards the first corner. It's a decent start from the McLaren 720 on the left-hand side from Marvin Mackenberg, who draws himself fully alongside of that Mercedes of Julian Kunze, who absolutely sends it into the first corner. You've got the rocket car there of Matthew Heaven trying to get down the inside of Sinan Gunay, who's had a bit of a poor start, and he's now being attacked by someone who's certainly not his only fan. It's Sven Mackenberg trying to get onto the scene.
Yeah, there's so many drivers trying to get through on this opening lap. That's Sinan Gunay looking for the inside line on Mariusz Zabdir. Obviously, that poor start not helping it out, but here's Luciano Wittfurt already up 2 positions, looking for a third on the inside it's a second on the inside of Matthew Evan. I apologise, but he's just about squeezed through on the British driver there. He's going to be looking for Sven Mackenberg if he can stop defending here, because Matthew Evan is really on the back of him. Here comes Lapanek.
Yeah, Michael Lapanik, of course, the one of the highest placed BMWs in this grid. He is indeed the highest placed BMW. He's now trying to get himself past Heaven, who's had a fantastic qualifying session, but the race not starting off in the particularly the greatest way as they head through that central section. The BMW works its way past the McLaren, now takes a defensive line as we once again head out onto what really feels like it should be the back stretch of this circuit. There was a bit of fighting up ahead. I think it was actually Mario Zabda on the rear end of Marvin Mackenbergers. At the front, it's now 7, nearly 8 tenths of a second that Julian Kunzer's got over the rest of the field. They head their way through then, and Julian Kunzer currently looking like he is in control. 6 tenths of a second. Once again, we rise up the hill. The sectors are looking pretty decent. Marvin Mackenberg, though, with plenty of pressure on his shoulders. Now the question there is, what does Mario Sabdir do? Does he go on the attack, or does he wait for Marvin Mackenberg to try and close that gap?
Yeah, I think Marvin Mackenberg is definitely going to have to try and close that gap. But Mario Sabir behind him isn't going to be helping whatsoever. Sinan Gunay just behind in the Mercedes, also sniffing around as they come through that final corner. But a big gap on the back of Kunze at this stage. It will take quite a lot to catch back up to the German at the front, but it can be done. Still a long way to go. We're looking at another 29 laps in this race, and Marvin Mackenberg, a lot of work to do. There's so many cars who also have a lot of work to do. So it's early stages, but I'm sure he can try and work his way back to the front.
Something I'm sure not too many drivers are thinking about, but certainly something they should be thinking about is not exceeding track limits too many times, not exceeding incident points too many times over the hour-long race here. As there's a bit of a look there once again from Mario Sabdir, but I think it might just be alternate lines from the pair of them. The 1.1 second gap that Julian Kunzer's made up is probably terrifying the rest of the field straight away. But yeah, track limit excursions, we saw a lot of it in qualifying. We saw a lot of laps going to red, and that is exactly what we don't want to see through the race. Here comes Lucianovic, but then looking down the inside of Sven Mackenberg. This is for position inside the top 5. Mackenberg's gone out wide and has just gifted it to him. Is it Lucianovic for his birthday? It must be with that kind of gift.
I mean, he's had so many gifts the last week. Of course, picking up the win last time out in the KTM race just by the mistake of the front two in the final lap. So he really has been gaining some positions, and he's up to P5. And with every position he gains, that worries the front guys of Kunze and Mackenberg that little bit more, because everyone knows the place of Lucianovic on his day, and it can be absolutely scintillating. But coming back down the hill once again, Marvin Mackenberg still defending that gap nearly out to 2 seconds at the front, and feeling like I'm starting to feel a little bit silly saying that Marvin Mackenberg won in this race, because at the moment Kunze is absolutely walking it.
But Kunze was looking really strong at Most, and then kind of through pitting a little bit too early, actually fell apart just a touch. Now, I wouldn't suspect that will happen around here, courtesy of how it is to overtake around here. Obviously, Lucianovic was proving that one quite nicely. But then also the kind of the idea that realistically speaking, I don't think he'll copy that mistake. I don't think we'll be seeing Julian Kunze into the pit lane fairly early in this. I think he'll just sit there trying to pull out a big lead, especially if he's got a lead like this. I think he dropped back a couple of positions, if I remember correctly. Maybe it was through a mistake or through someone else's mistake. I can't actually remember what happened at Lost. I don't remember what happened yesterday, so fair enough. Commentators don't exactly have particularly long memories. But Kunze basically did win that race, even though he looked like the faster driver. Lucianovic played his strategy game very, very well, and then clean swept the Autodrom Most round as on the return drive, here comes Heaven.
Yeah, Heaven to the inside in that lovely looking McLaren car. Can he control it through 3? Inside line for Lapanik into 4, and he might be able to control this as Heaven. Yes, he does, just about. Squeezes out the British driver, but he's just sticking it out there around the outside. He'll have the outside line for this double apex right-hander. I don't think it's going to work around the outside there, but he's going to make it happen if he can. Maybe a little bit of an undercut through the first part of the corner, but that's not going to quite work out. But some great racing between the two of them there, Lapanik and Heaven. The car size is quite different, but he might be looking for an inside line in the middle sector. But these two continue to fight all the way through this middle part of the lap.
Obratao's gone for a spin. That is a big shame for the VR46 liveried car, as there is Heaven straight down the inside of Lapanik, so he does make it stick. That was a bit of brute force, almost touring car-esque. Evan had to go there to try and make that one up. He's got a long gap now up to Sven Mackenberg. Here is Sven's brother. It's Marvin Mackenberg. Now nearly 2 seconds down on Julian Kunze, who's going full sports mode on the rest of the field. I've seen these drives from Julian Kunze, not for a while though, showing exactly the level of driver that he is. Trying to check out now in just 6 minutes, in 3 laps, he's pulled nearly 2.5 seconds on what is still a quality field. just a very impressive drive from the German at the moment. Obviously, part of that can be from Marvin Mackenberg's struggles on speed, but also maybe the pressure that Marius Zabde is dishing out, same as with Sinan Günay, the Turkish driver directly behind.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen it with Kunze before. He's always had the pace, but in the last couple of ranked events, as we see, is that Kunze dropping down? Where's he disappeared to?
Has he got a drive-through penalty for jumping the start? There's no way we could be...
No.
Oh, no! How? Okay.
I was just about to mention, actually. I was just about to mention the fact that Kunze, at Bathurst a few months ago, he was in a good fight with Cody Nikolai Latkovsky, and then he crashed, I think, about 40 minutes into that race. And just this weekend, back at Road America, he had that moment with Marvin Mackenberg that sent him to the back of the field, and then didn't finish the race. So he has the experience of being at the front. For a while, we've not really seen him finish that to the end of the race. And that's happened again, because he's back down in P22. He's got a massive task now to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, with that, I mean, I'm just going to clarify, I do not believe in the commentator's curse. It does not exist. I did not make Julian Kunze jump that race start. He jumped the race start. Or maybe a technical issue or something. I don't know. That's not my fault. Just kind of gapping myself away from it. To be fair, that actually kind of makes sense a little bit as to why maybe Marius Zabde, maybe Marvin Mackenberg won't going on the attack, because these drivers will know when the other drivers receive drive-through penalties. So maybe actually when we obviously saw Julian Kunze checking away from the front of the field, they were like, all right, don't really care. See you in a bit. Would it be too crazy, though, if Julian Kunze still won from this position? Is it possible?
I mean, it's possible, but I think it would be crazy if he won, quite frankly. 21 positions in, we're looking at about 26 laps or so. I mean, that would be exceptional, but he's got past Biatkowski for P21, and I think there were a couple others who fell down the order just a moment ago, that he gained another couple as well, but no, he's got a long, long way to go, but he is only 15 seconds off the front. Field spread, not massive at all. As a lot of these drivers coming down that front straight together, but it now means that we do have an incredibly tight battle for the lead between Mackenberg, Zabde and Günay.
And guess who's not that far away behind? Yep, it always just has to be Luciano Wittfurters, Manzini and Villacrevi. Of course Villacrevi is in that Porsche. Every time I've seen Cravey, it's been in that car, as here comes a move for the race lead. Marius Zabde straight around the outside of Marvin Mackenberg, and bang, slaps his 720S at the front of the field with 51 minutes left to go. That was through T3 and 4. This is Sinan Günay also trying to jump onto the scene. They head down the hill towards turn 5. That Mercedes to the outside line, surely not going to work. He's got to go for the up and under, but he is still trying to commit and send it around the outside. It's not going to work. And Marvin Mackenberg has the whole shot, the up and under. Ooh, that's a bit late on the old commitment to that.
It wasn't. I thought Danny inside. I thought Luciano Wittfurt was going to have a little go on Günay there, but thinks better of it. But Zabde flowing with confidence in the past week, really is driving incredibly well, and it just shows, isn't it, getting around the outside there of Marvin Mackenberg when it mattered. He's got that lead now, and he can try and drive away. We'll now be able to see whether it is the pace of Julian Kunze and Marius Zabde, or if it's Marvin Mackenberg just holding everybody up here, because it looks like Mackenberg's already got quite a big gap to Zabde up in front, but still got that close gap to the cars behind as we see a move on the inside. But contact!
Silly. That was silly from Luciano Wittfurt. It was too aggressive, and that rejoin's not exactly ideal. Right into the pathway of heaven, right into the pathway of Lapanik as well, and Luciano Wittfurt's going to lose out, dropping his way down the order, maybe even the Villacrevi as well. It was just a little bit too silly down the inside. It was too aggressive. It was unneeded at that point to try and get down the inside of Sinan Günay, and what it's done is it's just split apart the grouping at the front. Here comes Sven Mackenberg trying to get around the outside of Günay, and things like this are the kind of times that might actually help someone like Julian Kunze on his recovery drive at the field. He's still in 20th position, but you never really know with a driver like that. That was just, yeah, it wasn't great. Let's go with that.
Yeah, it wasn't the ideal lap. He's right on it against Lapanik and gets the move down the inside of turn 1, so he's already on that comeback trail. Already trying to make the move back once again, but he's got a little bit of a gap to Vigneron up in front, who's a bit of a no man's land at the moment. There's so many cars so close together at this stage, but you know, he's about a second and a half behind Heaven in front, and about a second in front of it, but behind. So got a nice little bit of breathing room at this stage of the race. We see Norgenet P10 just in front of his countryman, it's Van Tits. So 10th and 11th at the moment for those two. Dufek not too far behind either as they wind their way down towards turn 5 and 6. But, you know, with that fighting between Gunnar and Mackenberg, there's a bit of a gap forming up to Marvin Mackenberg at the moment. About a second and a half now as him and Marriage Zabia are starting to get away from the rest.
Yeah, like you say, kind of dodging through all of the carnage. Sven Mackenberg and obviously Sven Gunnar having a slightly different Mercedes AMG slapped into the side of his car. It's just cost them time. It's just allowed the top two to check out. And I don't know if Marvin Mackenberg's actually got the pace to keep up with Mario Zabdir. At the moment, the pace is pretty similar, but even that pace is just that gap rather has kind of gapped out. It's gone out by 1/10 of a second in Zabdir's favour. He's looking to carry over his form from Road America from the 2-hour race that we did on Saturday, as there is an issue for Kovalevsky and a man on his debut in the RaceRoom Rank Championship GT3 Pro Series. That's a man backwards and sideways, obviously sat the hairpin, and that car is moving about as fast as I do in sim racing these days.
Yeah, he may be Swiss, but he hasn't kept himself out of that battle because he slipped right to the back of the
nice.
field. He's back into 21st position. Is that Sen sending it to the inside? The penultimate corner, I think it is, on Dufek, the man in his home Grand Prix, the highest Czech driver at this stage of the race. We see them going at it at the moment, but Sen having to stick behind Polgar as well. And there's a big gap between Polgar and Dufek. It's for 12th and 13th. That is the main break in the top, 31 even. A top break in the train, but yeah, lots of moves being made at the back. They're too wide towards turn 3.
Yeah, certainly. Let's see. Julian Kunze trying to get his way past Guides. He's obviously got to go around the outside here, and well, that just shows how much better Julian Kunze is. I don't know if Guides was fighting that one too hard, but he wasn't exactly giving too much room for the German. Made his way past Guides. Next one is Oliver Berndt. Not sure he's going to do it on the race down the hill, but it should be fairly soon. Kunze, he's deep in the pack. He is looking like a man on a mission right now.
Yeah, he really is. P16, if my... Yes, the pixelated photo is correct. Yes, it is P16 for Kunze, and he's on the back of his countryman. Can he make the move to the inside? And this tight and twisty middle sector, I think he can, and he's through. Up into P15 now, and it'll be Sen, the next one up the road. And I mean, once he gets, well, I mean, I say once he gets past, if he gets past, I'm sure he will, Polgar and Sen, he's got a lot of work to do to just gain that time up to Dufek, because as we've mentioned, it's about a 7-8 second gap between 12th and 13th, and that is going to be where Kunze is really going to have to put his foot down, because that is where he's going to have to gain the time. Won't have to fight with anybody because there is clean air. He's just got to pound the laps in, lap after lap, to try and gain all those positions and get himself back up towards the front, but still quite a bit of work to do. 17 seconds off the front now.
Yeah, it is a long way, but you never really know. And again, I do remind yourselves that this race does include a pit stop, so could use some of that timing to his advantage. Remember, he did build out 2.5 seconds over the field in just 5 minutes, so it's unlikely, yes, but there is some possibility there. Is Gaspar Mish and O'Hack, I believe, are the two that are going to go side by side here down towards the first corner. O'Hack to the inside, absolutely sending in as hard as he can to get past Gaspar Mish. And Kovalevsky, after his issues and the incident earlier on, is now trying to get himself involved in this fight. Of course, that incident between himself and a man. I mean, I don't know how you can get involved in an incident with that Porsche. It is quite bright and very hard to miss, as the McLaren 720 that Mariusz Zabdir should be piloting gets down the inside. That will be Manzini making his way past Kovalevsky.
And he's now up into the top 20, Manzini, so that's good progress from him. He's moved up a few positions in this race himself. So, I mean, we're looking at the likes of... I mean, I was going to say, the fact that we are talking about Julian Kunze even remotely possibly getting towards the top 3, maybe even the win in this race, just shows how much quality he has. He's going to try the same move again inside of Sen here. I think he's just about going to be able to make it, and does. So he's only got one more car to go in this train, and then he's got a long way. You can just about see in the distance there Dufek a long way down the road, and that is going to be his target for a few laps to come. But now see it's Van Tits, who is defending from Dufek. He's got some purple wheel rims, hasn't he? Quite fancy, very bright indeed.
But whose Porsche do you prefer, Van Tits or Villacravis? Because obviously it's the same livery, but one's got purple highlights, one's got green or yellowy highlights. Which one's your cup of tea, Dara?
I think green. I think green highlights.
Okay, good man. That is the correct choice. As much as I do quite like the purple, it's very fetching. As Michael Dufek enters the pit lane, I think that is inside the pit sequence, so should be okay. Julian Kunze, obviously his check accounts for the drive-through, so is not correct. So as much as he's been into the pit lane, that is not ticking off the mandatory pit stop. You can see at the top there it says pit window open. Everyone must make a pit stop during this race. So quite a lot of the grid on their first lap into pit lane, or the first lap they can get into pit lane, are going straight down. That is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, is that going to suggest that a lot of these guys are going to pit early, or could it suggest there's a wider range for that pit window? Some will go right at the start, as we're seeing with quite a few drivers now. Will some go right at the end of that pit window and leave it quite late to go in if they're finding the pace underneath them? But Mariusz Abdi is going to have that to think about whilst in the lead, of course. He will come round once he finishes this lap. It'll be 10 laps completed for the Polish driver. We see Kowalewski trying to go around the outside of Tatara, but I feel like Tatara has made the move on Kowalewski, and I think he has, because I can't remember Tatara being in front of the Polish driver. And now Luis Gamero might be having a little bit of a look in his yellow and black Mercedes, and he gets very, very close. Two very bright cars going at, actually 3 very bright cars if you include Tatara there. So good racing at the moment between these guys, but Kowalewski, he's falling down the field a little bit, not really having the pace that he would hope for, and he's just realistically hanging on to the cars in front at the moment.
Yeah, obviously a couple of struggles there. It does happen around the circuit. Obviously, you do lean quite a bit on the car, particularly towards the rear. But the Ukrainian driver is trying to say Tatar to the group behind and try and pull away. 15th position at the moment is the Ferrari, but there might be a look down the inside from the Ukrainian driver. And here we go. This is exactly where the attempt came in from Lucianovic, but a lot of curb used on the left-hand side. And Kowalewski heads to 15th position. Tatar now down to 16th as Louis Gamero hangs on in 17th. Mihai Neg in 18th. A couple of drivers then into the pit lane. Lapanik being the next one to add to the list as Luciano Vitford battles his way with Guillaume Vigneron. So I think there might have been a couple of problems for Vitford.
Yeah, not
oh no, it's just
because
because he went and sent it down the inside of Sinan Gula. See, I
that's
told
right,
you commentators have short memories.
We have very good long-term memories, but the short-term isn't quite there. But Vitford, he's going to have to defend here from Vigneron, who looks like he's going to shake for the move to the inside of turn 4. We've seen that one a couple of times so far this evening. Not quite a third of the way through this race yet, so still a long, long way to go. But Vitford has still got lots of work to do. He's 7 seconds off that lead, 10 seconds in front of Kunze. The thing I was wondering is, now that Kunze has basically cleared that train, especially with a couple of drivers pitting, will he stay out longer to try and avoid coming out anywhere near those drivers again and maybe get himself up towards that top 10, or will he pit a little bit earlier, try and find that gap and just pump in the laps? That'll be interesting to see what he does, but it's going to come to the point soon where Lapanik is catching Lukic for P18 at the start of those drivers who have pit, only about 5 seconds between them at the moment, and then we'll have to see if any moves are made. But Kunze at P11 at the moment. How far up can he get? We've got a long way to find out.
I mean, going really quickly at the moment, absolutely sprinting up to Tits at the moment in 10th place, closing in almost half a second in the first sector alone. So certainly can get himself inside the top 10. See Tits going through in the foreground. They're heading through the chicane. Obviously, with 40 minutes left, there's still plenty of time. My concern, though, or my question rather, is second sector versus the rest of the field. He's just set a 28.4 in the second sector. Now, that was 1.5 seconds faster than Tit. So this lap alone is 2 seconds faster than Van Tit. That's pretty impressive. But then versus the rest of the field, it was something in the region of about half a second to a second faster than pretty much everyone ahead anyway. So if you want to see a man on a mission right now absolutely wrestling their way around the Autodrome Brno, It is Julian Kunze at the moment, who crosses the line set at 59.903. Obviously not fastest lap territory, because they've put a little bit too much tyre wear through the focus. I would say I want to pit early. If tyre wear is fairly high, I want to pit fairly early. Because, yeah, I know you're probably going to have to work your way through a couple of people. But realistically speaking, not too many people have been to the pit lane just yet. I would want to be one of those ones that's pitted, trying to make my way past it. But then, obviously, Julian Kunze knows more about sim racing than I do, so fair enough.
But also, I mean, his last lap of 59.9 is 3/10, or nearly 4/10 faster than anyone else's on that lap, and it just shows how much pace he's got. He's the only man sub 2 minute at the moment, and he went nearly a second quicker than Marvin Mackenberg in second. So it is happening. He is gaining the time, but it just has to be a development. We'll just have to see where he goes on the strategy. I mean, you can make an argument for going early, late, or just straight down the middle, about half an hour to go. So we'll just have to see how he plays it at the moment. We see that Nej trying to make the move here on Tara. I think he is inside line. Can he make it stick on the Ferrari driver? Oh, big bit of contact there with the Ukrainian, and Luis Gamero might try and come through around the outside as they run all the way through this important turn 9. But I think they're going to be fighting down towards turn 10. But still, positions being fought over. We're not quite halfway through the race. Tara defending hard, but I think he'll just about hang on to this one next time around.
Flash of the lights there up towards Miai Neg as well, being passing on the. That was a pretty rubbish move there, sir. Please don't do that again. As Tara hangs on to 16th position, like you say, good move, or good attempt rather, around the outside from Tara to keep Gamero at bay down at turn 10. Here is Julian Kunze. Once again, we'll keep our eye on the lap times he's doing. He's got 3.6 seconds now up towards Esteban Tits. Still not heading into pit lane. 37 minutes left to go in the race. Obviously, we're not even halfway through yet. And you can see now into the 2 minutes, a 2-minute 0.1. So losing out just a little bit of time there. The last lap time from our races was a 2-minute 0.4 from Marvin Mackenberg. It was a 2-minute 0.2. It was actually Marvin Mackenberg's best lap of the race on the previous one, interestingly enough. So still some time left in the tank, clearly, on these tyres from some of our contingent.
Yeah, definitely so, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops over the next couple of laps. Can the time gain? I mean, I often think of sometimes, you know, as the tyre wear comes and goes, it's a bit like a tidal effect where the drivers maybe will save, they will drop back a little bit and then gain back at the end of the stint if they have a little bit more tyre underneath them, where you might see that with a couple of drivers. But Marvin Mackenberg, that gap to Maris Abdi has stayed quite similar, really, for the last 8-9 laps really, so it's not really changed too much, and Gunai as well in there as well, but you can see the gaps are quite equal between the top 5 at the moment, about a second and a little bit between each of them, so they are all flowing through nicely indeed. Undercut territory definitely, but we'll just have to see how that all plays out. Sven Mackenberg in P4 we see here, can he maybe pit early and get up closer to his brother? We often see them incredibly close together on track, and the fact that they're second and fourth is no surprise. So I think we're just going to have to sit and wait here. Of course, those guys that pitted early, we've not seen anybody coming in the last couple of laps, so that is really quite interesting, as Lapanik's now going for Lukic, the first overtake of drivers who've pitted over drivers who haven't quite yet pitted.
Yeah, obviously grip difference will be quite high between this pairing. Once again, by the way, a second Julian Kunze was closing in there on Esteban Tits in the previous sector, so looking pretty strong. Villacrevi and Guillaume Vigneron head into the pit lane. They're the next ones to add to the list of drivers to check off their mandatory pit stop in this race. So as we head towards halfway in the race, it seems as though the strategy is split 50-50 really, which, to be fair, I quite like. I like the idea that everyone's kind of doing their own thing, figuring their own little bit out. Mary Stabdi is saying, to be honest, I'm just going to sit up here and do what I'm doing, leading by 1.2 seconds over Marvin Mackenberg. Sinan Gunai also close in tow, just half a second behind. There is Julian Kunze, our once race leader. There is our current race leader. They say 1.3, 1.1 seconds now. The gap's actually coming down. I said Marvin Mackenberg set his personal best lap in the fairly recent past. on the previous lap set a 2-minute point 3, which is about a tenth faster than Marouche Zabdir. So is closing that gap just a touch. Maybe Mackenberg is going to be right in contention for the victory to prove you right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd feel very happy with myself if
Of
Mackenberg
course
does
you
turn
would.
out to be the winner. I'd feel I'd feel very much vindicated for my suspicions there. But yeah, he's been fantastic all week, really, hasn't he? Been on a really hot bit of form. His only errors really being the mistake last week at Renault in the last lap of the KTM GT3 Trophy, and then of course that mistake with the Kunze on one of the opening laps at Road America in the 2 hour. But apart from that, he has really driven very solidly indeed, and he's really on a hot bit of form right now, and he's carrying it over to this GT3 Pro Series here at Renault. So we'll just have to see if materialises for him. I mean, the top 4 all really coming up close to bits. We see Vitford in the pit lane. So Vitford, the first man inside that top 10, as well as Noj. But they are the first drivers to make that move as Kunze comes in. That's the important one.
Yeah, that is interesting that Kunze has now chosen his time to come into the pit lane. Obviously, a couple of laps shy of halfway in the race. 33 minutes left to go. There is Sven Mackenberg trying to rejoin the fight for the race lead. I do suspect that we're closing in on the position of it really being a proper four-way fight for the race lead. And to be fair, don't count out Matthew Heaven, who's actually once again showing some really good pace, losing out a little bit in the the first sector there. Previous times in the first sector, everyone was in on Marouche Zabdir. Had a pretty average opener to this lap, as you can see some of those drivers leaving pit lane, including Julian Kunze, right into that battle with Balázs Nagy. Here's Mikael Lapanek defending from Luciano Vitford, fresh out of the pit lane to the outside. He will go coming down towards turn 3, but it seems as though Lapanek's still hot on the racetrack, remaining as the head of the drivers to have already made this pit stop.
Yeah, but Luciano Vitford is not going to be happy that that is the case, and he'll be very keen to get through on the driver company in P11 at this stage of the race. Vitford, I mean, he can think about it down into 5 and 6, but you're not really going to be able to make a move. I don't yet think we've seen a move pulled off through 5 and 6 yet, but it has been done on the inside here at 7 as they come round all the way to the left. A long left-hander. On a track of long corners, turn 7 is a particularly long one. But we do see Julian Kunze only 2 seconds off the back of Nodge as well, and he is 7 seconds off of Vitford, so that time has come down over that stint. So, you know, we'll have to see how that progresses. Can he gain a few more seconds on the guys yet to pit? We'll find out soon enough. But now Zabdir, race leader in the pit lane, and that is just for the halfway mark in this race.
Yeah, I did wonder who was going to be coming down to pit lane this time, because he set an average first sector. The second sector was also very much in average terms comparatively to the rest of the field. So the pole decides to come down onto pit lane now, try and stop the bleeding when it comes to that lap time, maybe get himself out in front and kind of use a little bit of the start of the second half of the stint to sort of consolidate that lead once again. But certainly seems as though we're definitely going to have a fight. Polgar also into pit lane. Balázs Polgar, the next one to add to it, meaning that most of the field have now been into pit lane. Julian Kunze's got about 2 seconds up to the back of Balázs Nagy. I definitely think that Kunze's going to find himself comfortably inside the top 10. Obviously, was closing up to Istvan Tits. I actually reckon will be ahead of Istvan Tits post pit lane sequence from the entirety of the field. Obviously, those that need to stop: Jose Luis Gamero, Mihai Neg, then Kovalevsky, Istvan Tits, Matthew Heaven, Marvin Mackenberg, Sinan Gunai, and Sven Mackenberg. I've done those Mackenbergs the wrong way around, but that's fine. That's from back to front of those that we are awaiting to come to the pit lane. Ivan Lukic also to be slapped onto that list with just 30 minutes and 30 seconds left to go. Kovalevsky way out wide. This might be Mihai Neg trying to make his way through.
It is, and Naj has got through, but that is Marouche Zabdir just behind these two fighting it out. Of course, you would say net race leader at this stage of the race, but he cannot afford to lose too much time while Nej and Kovalevsky fight over P6, because of course they are a pit stop down in this race, and he cannot afford to let any of that time evaporate to the likes of Marvin Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg and Gunai, the top 3 at the moment. And I think that is Kovalevsky just letting his countryman pass there down into turn 10, not fighting it at all. And I think Samson will be very pleased about that one, as we see Kunze now go around the outside of Lukic. He has pit, of course, has Kunze, and he's got past the driver who was last on track, who is yet to pit. So he's making moves. He's now right behind Noj. So he is making progress. He's making progress fast.
Yeah, to be fair, as much as it might be a bit of a frustrating race from Julian Kinzer, I think it might be quite fun. You're literally just flying past people. That was a pretty tasty move there from Kinzer. Obviously, next one up the road, as you say, is Balázs Nagy, who does find himself directly ahead. An Audi R8, of which we don't see too many of on the field. I do notice there are no Bentleys. There's no Aston Martins as well, because they're not in the game. Dara, just chucking that one out there for you, as we'll see Kinzer still trying to make his way past the four rings of the Audi. Lukic will take a potentially defensive line to the first corner. I can't imagine we'll see Lukic hanging onto this position, Balázs Nagy rather, Balázs Nagy hanging onto this position for very long. I think it might be done by turn 3.
Yeah, so I'm not too sure how this is going to play out, but I think he's going to look for it here. I mean, Kinzer really is on a charge. Inside line, he's going to dive it to the inside at turn 3.
Easy,
and that'll be the move. Oh, no! That's a turn-in from Nagy. Maybe Kinzer went a little bit deep there. We didn't really see a very good angle at all. But that is really going to stop the progress of Julian Kinzer. Nagy, I don't know if he turned in early. Maybe Kinzer went a bit deep. But either way, Kinzer's come off a lot worse in all that. He's got a lot more time to find once again, and now Krevi is going to have a little bit of a look just behind the Finnish driver, looking for that P14, but yeah, Kinzer is not going to be happy with this one at all.
My gut tells me that was naughty from Nagy. That's where my gut would lean, and obviously we had an awkward angle for it. I can't believe you're just throwing Chris straight under the bus, broadcast director here. It's been like, oh, we didn't have a very good angle for that. Poor guy. He's doing his best. But no, that was... I would lean it a little bit more towards Nagy turning in just a touch. Obviously, Kinzer was in deep, was in aggressive. But you kind of got to sit there and think, where is my race? Because my race is not with Julian Kinzer. There's no point in poking the bear, irritating him. Because I'm pretty sure Kinzer will be on the back of Balázs Nagy at some point through the final portions of this race. And I don't think he'll be particularly kind when it comes to making a move through. So into the pit stop, Sinan Gunay will come in. Where does the Turk come out comparatively to Marouche Zabdir? It seems as though fairly behind. You can see him departing pit lane in the background. So Marouche Zabdir's early entry into the pit lane has worked out comfortably in comparison to one of his race rivals. What's it going to be in comparison to the Mackenbergs?
Yeah, and will it come back to bite him a little bit though at the end of the race as the tyres might just start to go off just that bit more? We see Lapanek now having to defend from Vitford, who might go for the move here. Maybe the inside, looking at the outside, going to dive to the inside right late into turn 3. It's a very good attempt at the move. He's going to have to walk it around the outside of turn 4. Got to get those tap dancing shoes on if he wants to make it around the outside of Mikael Lapanek at that corner, but he's not quite able to do it. But a little bit of a bad exit there from the Russian gives Vitford the opportunity. Can he go around the outside of 5 and 6? We haven't seen it yet. Will he be the first?
Yep, he's got to send it in, does Luciano Vitford. He's got to take a lot of risk. Out into him goes Lapanek, just over braking it, pushing it a little bit too hard, makes contact and goes for a spin. The BMW M4 ends up backwards, losing out to Guillaume Vigneron as well. Here comes Balázs Nagy. Whoop, there goes another position, unfortunately, for Lapanek, just racing a little bit too hard. With Luciano Vitford, you've got to say, obviously made a bit of a mistake, a bit of a mess of the exit of T4, and that's really where the position was signed, sealed and delivered from the Dutchman.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen that move around the outside of turn 5 and 6. That might have been in the back of Lapanek's mind, but at that point, I mean, Vitford has got the confidence, he has got the track, and you'd have thought he would have probably pulled ahead. So maybe a little bit greedy for Lapanek to try it into the inside of 5 and 6. He's come off a little bit worse, but Nagy not looking too comfortable. 310 that is, as they come down the hill to the bottom of the track before rising back up again towards the end of the lap. But they go around Marvin Mackenberg, Sven Mackenberg, 1-2 at the moment. Matthew Heaven not too far behind either. They're the only, well, they're only 3 of the top group yet to pit. Nej hasn't pit, neither has Kovalevsky, neither has Luis Gamero, but they are quite a ways off of this battle for the front. So the 2 Mackenbergs in Heaven leaving it late. I mean, we did say early on that maybe if the drivers were going early, there'd be some drivers going late because you can have that long stint to get all the way to the end from about 47 minutes out. So we will have to see how late they go. But this is going to be interesting. Kunzer's going to just about jump up into P12 with those in the pit lane, but he's got to get those couple of positions to get past Nodge into the top 10 once again.
Yeah, like you say, interesting that they're going deep. Although, to be fair, this isn't super deep. We're only 6 minutes, which is around this circuit. It's 3 laps past the halfway point of the race. So, in all likelihood, we'll see them into the pit lane in the next sort of 4 minutes, so in the next 2 laps around the circuit. I don't suspect they'll be taking it all the way to the exit of the pit window, but maybe they've got some decent pace. I mean, their sector times and lap times absolutely, they're absolutely fine from them. I mean, they seem to be lapping comfortably quickly. They seem to be keeping themselves in that sort of decent sort of pace, not kind of pushing themselves too far, really. So, realistically speaking, I guess when you're in that kind of scenario, why push it too far? Why ask too much? If you're kind of comfortable with where you're at. I mean, let's be honest, the strategy that they're running is probably something that they've set comfortably before the race. It's not as if they're kind of reacting to it too much in the race. There's a little bit of that, sure, but right now Marvin Mackenberg probably already knows what lap he's coming in on. We just have to wait and see what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not this one, or it wasn't the last one, because he hasn't come in quite yet. I think that's Sven Mackenberg, possibly with a back marker there as they come through turn 1, because I don't think that's Matthew Heaven making the move. It definitely is not Matthew Heaven, just about emerging over the crest of the hill behind. But those 3 still going at it through the opening, near 20 laps now. That's a long way to go in this race, 18 completed. So, you know, they continue to go around, and there's going to be, what, another 12 to go? I think they might just about cross the line in time, but it might just be 11. It's going to be close, because of course the lap time is 2 minutes. Well, actually, with the pit stop, might be a little less close. But Mackenberg is still going. The gap is 2 seconds between himself and his brother. Here's Zab there trying to get past Nej, and that'll be P4, and then that'll mean that's a 25-second gap up in front of him before he can really start chasing after the front 3 who haven't yet pit.
Yeah, and obviously this is an important move for Zabdir to make that one go fairly quickly. Again, just to get on down the road, to get on after it. I will say Nej's lap times are absolutely fine. The only issue that he's got is Marvin and Sven Mackenberg belong to a team called Virtual Drivers by TX3. And Mihai Nej, you'll be shocked to see, is part of a team called Virtual Drivers by TX3. So, yeah, there's a little bit of team game in this. Obviously, the Romanian will probably want to keep Zabdir behind for as long as possible, not just for his own race, but for his teammates' race as well, as that is a pretty aggressive send there from David Noj, trying to get past Mikael Lapanik. Closing in on this is Julian Kunzer as well. The two of these continue their fight. Lapanik is able to hang on to 10th position, and David Noj is looking aggressive, is looking feisty in all this.
He really is, but I don't think Julian Kunzer is going to be, Nodge, I should say, is not going to be too excited to see Kunzer after what happened a couple of laps to go, because of course Kunzer is driving fast, and he is driving maybe a little bit angry after that incident, holding him up, possibly costing him a chance at that top 9, possibly top 8, but as it is, they continue on for now. I mean, Gunai is right on the back of Kowaleski. Yes, here we go for P6, Kowaleski in that bright green against the dark. It's a lovely colour, that Mercedes. As Kowaleski does come into the pit lane, so that gets out of Gunai's way, and he's up on his way.
Is it a really nice green though?
I love a dark green. I really do.
Yeah, no, it's not my colour. I can tell you that for free. Lime green and a bit of dark blue in there. Now we're talking. Now we're in the ballpark. Maybe even a very, very bright green and yellow, as you can see there on Jacek Kowalewski. Obviously, that one's definitely more Ewan O'Leary's cup of tea. Dark green though. Nah, it's not for me. Oh, everyone's like, oh, but British Racing Green. I'm like, yeah, it looks great in the 50s and 60s and looks terrible now. I think it comes with part of, supporting a mediocre team that wears green and yellow. Probably part of it, but also live in a forest. Lovely dark green, especially in the summer. You support Aston Martin?
No.
Oh.
No.
I mean, it's dark green with the yellow on it. And, no, it's fine. We'll move off of that. Yes. Sport. Anyway, Marvin Mackenberg and Sven Mackenberg continue to lead. Of course, themselves and Matthew have been the only drivers not to have come into pit lane yet, and not to come into pit lane now. You can see the pit lane entry there on the right-hand side, so you can actually you overcommit to the penultimate corner and throw yourself into pit lane. None of the 3 McLaren 720s at the front of the field are biting to come down onto pit lane. And realistically, they should probably start thinking about it, because the gap between them and Marius Zabdir is going to be quite vast, I feel, on the exit of pit lane, based on what I'm seeing sector time-wise. But obviously, you know, maybe they have to take less fuel, maybe they have to do this, maybe they have to do that. Maybe there's a bit more method to their madness. There's still 20 minutes left to go. It means there's 4 minutes left, and by that calculation, 2 laps left of the pit sequence. So they will have plenty of time to do so, as Manzini is trying to make a move on Polgar.
Yes, he really is. He's trying to go round all the way around the outside, but you're going to have to get up very early in the morning. And Manzini didn't quite get up early enough to make that move for P21 on the Hungarian, as they come down now through the long right hand. So many long corners at this racetrack. It's just so open and incredibly flowing as well, especially if you're the only car on the track. But now through this final sector, he's trying to find the line, Manzini, trying to get the exit towards the final couple of corners. Can he find it on this occasion? Not too sure he can, but he is gaining up towards that penultimate corner, looking for an inside line. Kovalevsky not too far in front. He's just going to have to pull back. Is he? No, he's going to go for it into the penultimate corner. Very wide from Polgar there, incredibly wide, nearly driving himself into the pit lane. And that is going to cost him P21. Manzini says thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening down in P22. And he's left him for Tatara to maybe go after him himself.
Just going to talk very quickly on sector times whilst we're looking at this. First sector is being complete from Marvin, Sven, and Mackenberg, and then Matthew Heaven. I was going to throw him into the Mackenberg category, versus Marius Zabdir. 3 of them were faster in the first sector than Marius Zabdir. Second sector is coming up for Marius Zabdir. At the moment, Marvin and Sven Mackenberg both setting 29.3s in that second sector. Matthew Heaven setting a 29.4. Marius Zabdir will come across that second sector, and we're just waiting for that time to come over. But I get the feeling, based on the lap times that I've seen from him in the second sector, it's not actually that much faster. Heaven comes into the pit lane. It was a 29.3 in that second sector. It was a 28.9, by the way, from Sinan Gunay. So Gunay is absolutely flying at the moment, 2.5 seconds back from Marius Zabdir. Let's keep an eye on where that gap between Heaven and Zabdir is going to be, how large that margin is. Again, remember, he was a few seconds off of the race lead, but nothing too major, so it could be very indicative to what we're going to see over the final portion of this race.
Yeah, definitely so. And with those laps ticking down, we'll just have to see where Matthew Heaven comes out. That's going to be an important factor here. Of course, still in that pit lane, still dropping behind, looking like he might drop behind Luciano Wittfurt as they come out. But Heaven, I think, he's just come out of the pit lane now, so we'll have to see where that McLaren filters out. And there he is, right on the inside, on the apex, where Luciano Wittfurt would love to place his Mercedes car, but can't, because Matthew Heaven is already saying that that is his piece of racetrack, but he's able to come all the way around the outside at turn 1. But with all the grip, all the confidence to make that move stick. But I don't think Heaven's given this up as we come in towards turn 3. Is he going to try it all the way around the outside? I don't think he will on this occasion. And with a quarter of this race to go, Matthew Heaven has shown the Mackenberg brothers might come out in in P3, P4 area, because they should come out in front of it. As Kunze now is fighting with Noj once again, but this time it's the inside at turn 3.
Yeah, I've got to say, I think that we'll see this fight to kind of battle it out. Obviously, that was the quarter where they previously made a bit of contact, so Kunze will be a little bit, probably more well thought out, but obviously quite aggressive and miffed about the whole scenario. Final lap time for them to come into the pit lane, so we'll see both Sven and Marvin Mackenberg into pit lane. I think they will come out behind Sinan Gunay ahead of Luciano Wittfurt. I do get the feeling that Marvin Mackenberg might be quite close to the back of Sinan Gunay, who finds himself 2 seconds off the rear end of Marius Zabdir. But of course, those 2 McLaren 720s should be pretty fast in the final 15 minutes and 30 seconds, meaning, Dara, I think we've got quite a race on this afternoon.
Yes, we really do. Can we see another last lap showdown at Brno? 2 in 2 weeks with the KTM GTX last week and the GT3 Pro Series this week. But Marius Zabdir will almost certainly come out in the net race lead if he comes around the final couple of corners. The Mackenberg brothers in their pit boxes at the moment, as they are not on the racetrack at this stage. But where will they be when they do return to this Brno racetrack? We will have to find out. They are just emerging now. So it's a bit under discussion. I think that's Marvin Mackenberg in P2. He's ahead of Gunay. So That's even further up than we were expecting, and he's only about a second off the back of the lead here. So if anything, I think he's gained by going that much longer in this race.
Yeah. Panic stations for Mariusz Zabdir. Seeing that McLaren 720 come out not that far behind, this is concerning because, of course, whilst Mariusz Zabdir's used some of the good speed early on in stint, that was carving through the field, losing time in doing so, and might well find himself in a bit of a precarious position over the final quarter of this race. Obviously, the pit lane sequence has come to a close. That is now over. Every single driver has been into the pit lane for their mandatory stop. Obviously, there we do have a few retirements down towards the rear of the field. We'll cut those off. Esteban Titsman, Maisman, Guides, Rui Felipe, and Ten Volder retirement from this race, sadly. We'll maybe see those out in 3 weeks' time when it comes to racing at the season finale at the Nordschleife. Can't wait for a little bit of that. Everyone loves a cheeky bit of the Nordschleife, even if it is the second best track on the planet.
Yeah, it really is, and a lot of fun to go racing at. I'll have to see how that develops in the championship. Obviously, there won't be too many laps there, of course, being such a long track, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how the drivers go about it. Of course, a very different track, this Brno circuit, where this is incredibly wide, and you can go 2 wide, 3 wide, pretty much anywhere around the track. You absolutely cannot do that, definitely around parts of the Nordschleife, because if you do, got a whole world of pain coming for you, and that world of pain is called a wall, so they're going to have to be careful of that one. But Marvin Mackenberg, I mean, he really has been incredibly impressive in that middle part of the race, and he is in definitely with a shout of the race win here. Let's just see if he can do it. There's going to be, what, 7 laps to go? Yeah, 7 to go to the end of this race, so ample chance for him to get the win here.
He needs to settle himself, though, because Sinan Gunai is right on the rear end, and I think we'll probably want to go for something fairly sharpish at the start of the second stint for Marvin Mackenberg. Maybe see if there is a position to get down the inside, go for something, maybe attack somewhere, T3, T5, maybe even down towards 10. Sort of better earlier than later. Marvin Mackenberg will just sit there defending, hanging on, maybe not trying to oversettle himself at the moment. Obviously, we're not 100% sure as to what fuel, what tyre strategy they've been doing, so there could be some of that at play from some of the drivers. Not even sure really what they can do. Obviously, I think the fuel and tyres is done at separate intervals in the pit lane. I think it's old GT3 styles. I hate the fact that they're doing fuel and tyres at the same time these days, because the strategy is just boring. I think they have to do them separately, meaning I think everyone's going to be starting the race with a full tank of fuel. And just taking a couple of tyres or such in the pit stop. That's what I think anyway. But again, commentator, fat, not really racing sim racing for a while. So, you know, I choose to listen to some of the drivers every now and then.
Yeah, which is
better than driving.
Which is how we know what we know. So, Zabdir, whether they could choose their fuel, I mean, it would have been interesting to see if that was why Mackenberg had some slow pace at the start, knowing he'd go longer, but, you know, that'd be completely wrong and just a conspiracy theory in my brain. But, yeah, we'll see how this develops, of course. Mackenberg not really gaining too much on Zabdir at the moment, but, I mean, even gaining 3/10 per lap would be enough. I mean, this time around, he's about a 1/10.5 up through that middle sector on Mariusz Zabdir. Sinan Gunai just a little waves back, and Sven Mackenberg is also gaining about 3/10 to Sinan Gunai so far on this lap. So do have that pace in hand after pitting late, but it's just whether they can use it towards the end. Look at this Matthew Heaven on the back of Luciano Bitford, who, despite that incident, still finds himself in P5. Yeah,
certainly so. Obviously, when it comes to drivers working their way up the field after issues, Luciano Bitford's a solid drive for it. Unfortunately, some of the issues that he had was actually in qualifying. And then, of course, with that incident a bit earlier on with Lapinick. Frustrating. Obviously, Julian Kunze, king of the recovery drive at the moment, but sadly, after that incident, I kind of get the feeling, between himself and Balashinaj, I kind of get the feeling that was very much curtains for his race and maybe even getting a podium. That said, I don't think he would have got much higher than sort of like, to be honest, 8th place. I think Lapinick, where you can see there's a 10-second margin from Lapinick to Vigneron, I think that was as high as he was ever going to get in this race. Bit sad, but that's what happens when you jump the race start. Even if you are the fastest driver on track, he does at least have the purple check for fastest lap in this race. With 10 minutes left to go, I don't suspect that one will fall.
No, I don't either. So, I don't know, he looks pretty wrapped up with that one as he tries to plough through once again. But Luciano is really gapping Matthew Evan here. Of course, Matthew Evan did pit late, didn't he? So he will have that advantage. But Vitford having to be wary of Matthew Evan behind. I mean, Vigneron has just been sitting there incredibly comfortably, hasn't he? He's P7 at the moment, but he hasn't really done much in this race. He's just kind of existed in the lap times, been incredibly solid, and finds himself in P7, probably where he belongs or where he should be. So that's it's good for him to find himself high up in this order, but we'll have to see if he can stay there, which I'm sure he can. Big gap back to Lapanek back there. It would take a massive error for him to lose that one. Just about to see Lapanek come through frame there. But, I mean, top 3 within a second now, so it really is heating up. About 5 laps to go, maybe even 6 laps to go. So, I mean, it is going to be incredibly tight. No, 5 laps to go. Incredibly tight to the end of this race. And we're just going to see who comes out on top, but I still don't want to call it. It could be any of that top 3.
It's going to be very close indeed. Yes, Marius Zabdir, Marvin Mackenberg and Sinan Gunai all battling for the race. You can see there on the right-hand side of the tower, by the way, the ratings and reputation of the grid. If you are curious and you have raced on RaceRoom a fair amount, you've got your rank and you're really proud of it. If you want to know how strong the field is, the average rating on the field is 2014. The average reputation on the field is 94.4. So it's relatively, you know, they're at their highest level, so it's quite a strong field from top to bottom. Basically, it's a relatively competitive field, shall we say, comparatively to the world of sim racing. So scary. We would certainly not be invited to participate in any major event, sadly, Darren, you and I, mostly because you're an open wheel Muppet and I'm a touring car Muppet, but we won't talk about that too much as Marius Zabdir hangs on to the race lead. It's a little further back as we can see some of the fighting just a touch down the order. Of course, this one, Gaspar Miss, and I was going to say it's Piatkovsky behind. I'm not sure that is.
No, I'm not too sure who that was behind, but we always see David Ohak fighting here with the German Bernd as they come into 5 and 6. The two very similarly liveried BMW cars there, but not exactly the same as they dive through 5 and 6. And that's Orbital, who we saw go for a spin earlier on. Prinder and Dufek, the two Czech drivers in their home Grand Prix, fighting out for home honours, of course. They're the only 2 drivers, I think they're the only 2 Czech drivers in the field, and they find themselves right next to each other with only 7 minutes remaining. So home honours to be sorted out there between those 2, but I mean, in this train, you want to gain every position you can. I mean, to finish even a position slightly higher in the ranked championship looks much better on an honours roll rather than that one position down, and you can be very proud of it. So these guys are going to be fighting incredibly hard for it. Meanwhile, these guys at the front, they're going to be fighting on whether they call themselves the champion or not of this series. Zabdir and Mackenberg, of course, they have to chase down Luciano Vitford in the championship, and they are going about it the right way at the moment. Marvin Mackenberg would close that gap to Luciano Vitford a fair bit if it were to finish like this. I think he's definitely going to be pushing for it.
I think, speaking of pushing, Marvin Mackenberg, yeah, he had quite a moment there, and Sinan Gunai might be onto the scene, someone who has nothing to lose in all of this. The other 2 are fighting for a championship. Sinan Gunai is here just for a cheeky Wednesday night's racing, straight down the inside of the Mercedes to go, leaning on that McLaren quite a bit. Oh, that's too much, though, from Marvin Mackenberg. He's going to go for a half spin. He manages to keep himself back going again. He's going to remain ahead of Sven Mackenberg, but maybe it was a little bit too aggressive from Marvin Mackenberg, trying to remain alongside Sinan Gunai. Obviously, no room was really given from the Turkish driver, so the 2 of those coming together, yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah, very interesting stuff indeed, and at the moment that would mean that Zabdir gains 10 points on Marvin Mackenberg if it to finish this way, and he would then lead Mackenberg in the championship by that 6 points. And then, of course, further that gain on Vitford, I think he'd only be about 10 points behind the Polish driver. But we see Kunze fighting now with Lapanek. He's trying to make the move for P8 in this race. He's still continuing his comeback. He'll have to go all the way around the outside at turn 10. This could be an interesting, exciting one if he can make it, but he's going a bit of an up and under. Lapanek goes a little bit deep. He's found the inside line, but as they bottom out through the corner, not quite found the move, and he's going to have to find it somewhere else, maybe ascend in this final sector.
Wow, that was a little bit too aggressive there from Gunter trying to get back down the inside of Lapanik. Thankfully, not clearing out the Russian driver. 5 minutes left to go, meaning there will be 3 laps left. Mariusz Zabdir has to hang on from Sinan Gunay. The gap growing a little bit for the race lead between Marvin Mackenberg a little bit off the rear end of Sinan Gunay. Here is Matthew Heffen continuing his fight with Luciano Wittfoot. The look to the inside for the McLaren 720. A bit of a late defensive move there from Luciano Wittfoot, but they were both on the straight. It was just a bit too reactionary for my liking as the Gatterchain Ballas Esports driver hangs on to 5th. Speaking of which, here is a fight for the race lead at the moment. Mariusz Zabdir for Absolute Motorsport is his teammate he's got to fight with, but on this day, they're not teammates. They're just fighting for what they've got.
Absolutely not. But Mariusz Zabdir will really want to keep that position. He's in a fantastic spot for the championship. Of course, as the points go down in this ranked championship, I think he would gain, if I'm not heavily mistaken, 16 points on Luciano Wittfoot. That gap in the title was 25 going into that, so that was way more than half, down to 9. So he knows that if he puts in a similar display next time out at the Nürburgring, he's in the shop for the title. So that is what he is thinking about here. Only going to be about 2.5 to go now. They should be able to get round another lap and a half to start the final lap, so 2.5 to go, especially for Wittfoot to defend from Matthew Heffen, who is still on the back of the Dutchman. He hasn't been able to make his way through, and he is really going to be trying, and we might see a lunge in the last couple of laps if he can't get it done soon.
Yeah, Julian Kunze still trying to get his way past Lapanik, so plenty of fights in the final few moments of this race. In the final 2.5 laps, see if Kunze can get his way past Lapanik. Would have to be pretty aggressive in the send department. Of course, Villacrevi also onto the scene. Battle for the race lead, though, it seems to be growing once again, because back into the scene and knocking at the door, Marvin Mackenberg is going to be rejoining this fight. You can see him just in the background. He's setting some decent second times in his recovery drive up to this. Of course, he's the one that pitted latest of the top grouping. Same with Sven Mackenberg, because we could see both Mackenbergs in the fight for the race lead. A 4-way showdown. We're on to the penultimate lap of this race. It could absolutely be a 4-way fight for the final running here at Brno.
It definitely can be, and this is going to be an incredibly exciting end to the race. 2 to go as they come through turn 2 and up towards turn 3. Can Gunay pull something out of the hat? I mean, it would really be quite a large rabbit if he was to do so. But Mariusz Zabdir is very much hoping that in that hat is quite nothing apart from air, because he needs to get this win to have a chance at the title. But that Mercedes is so close to the back of Mariusz Zabdir, and he is going to be feeling it soon, is the pole, because with only a lap and a half to go now, has got to feel the pressure from all 3 drivers behind him as they bear down on him in these last couple of laps.
Yeah, obviously Marvin Mackenberg won't be particularly pleased with the incident he had in this corner a couple of laps ago with Sinan Gunay, so he'll be wanting to make his way through and make his presence felt and known. But of course, right under the scene will be Sven Mackenberg as well. So you've got a couple of Mackenbergs involved in the fight, both representing Virtual Drivers by TX3. You've got a couple of drivers representing the Absolute Motorsport Racing team as well involved in the fight, currently running 1 and 2. Let's see if there's going to be a move fairly soon. Surely not now, but it is most certainly 3 for the race leaders. We head through turn 10 there, hairpin, and begin our climb once more up towards start-finish straight for the penultimate time. We'll have to wait and see who's going to come out on top. Of course, round 3 of the Racing Rank Championship, the GT3 Pro Series, our final race here at Brno. And once again, it's looking like it could come down to a very entertaining end.
Yeah, definitely. I've just seen in the YouTube chat there is someone from Absolute Motorsport typing away, so they are going to be very much hoping that they don't come together, but coming together now down the hill. Julian Kunze and Mikael Lapanik. Kunze trying to go all the way around the outside through turn 11. He'll have the inside line for 12 as he finally got this move done. I think he has, and indeed he does. The Mercedes ahead of the BMW now up into P8. Let's hope that we don't see that between the 2 Absolute Motorsport drivers at the front, but with 1 lap to go, who knows what will happen. Inside line now for Crevi as he tries to get through. I don't know how that's come off for him, but he's just still there with those yellow rims as they come round the final couple of corners now.
Yeah, it's pretty tight here. Villacrevi on the up and under of Lapanik. They head down to the start-finish straight. This will be the final time for them entering the first corner. Villacrevi trying to get the whole shot on the move on the Russian, who's going to send it in very deep into the first corner. It's a long way around, though, to try and make anything stick around the outside at the first corner here at Brno. You could do it on a motorbike. You can't really do it on 4 wheels, though. Final lap of the race. Things are very tight towards the front, although I think Sinan Gunay's attention is more rearward than forward. I think this is Mariusz Zabdir's to lead, especially especially if Marvin Mackenberg's going to make those kinds of mistakes, putting out all the pressure that he can, dishing everything that he can to the rear end of the Turkish driver. But Sinan Günay is defending like his life depends on it. He's doing a fantastic job, and Mari Sabdi is starting to check out once again.
He's absolutely checking out, and this is exactly the time to do so. With only half a lap to go, this is when you need to put your foot down. It's when you need to find every single apex that you have in your locker, and he's found every single one on this lap so far. Günay, if anything, doing a good job holding up the two Mackenberg brothers, the TX3 drivers, who are chasing him down as they dive now for the final time through turn 10, and 4 corners to go for end this race. But it looks like Mari Sabdi just about has enough to hang on for this win in the GT3 Pro Series.
Well, the first round of the championship belonged to Luciano Wittfurt. The second round of the championship belonged to Cody Nikola-Latkowski. Most certainly, we're getting another new winner in this season of the GT3 Pro Series, and it does look as though heading through the final complex of corners, it will be Mari Sabdi. We did a lot of work in qualifying, but maybe got a bit fortuitous courtesy of Julian Kunter's issues early on in the race. He is going to win at Brno, and it's Mari Sabdi across the line. Sinan Günay, Marvin Mackenberg, and Sven Mackenberg come across the line, all four of them separated by 1.1 seconds. Incredibly close between the top four as Luciano Wittfurt comes across the line with those in arrears after a struggling qualifying, after an issue through the race as well. Yeah, that was pretty entertaining. I'm happy with that race, Dara.
A cracking race all the way around. 1 hour's worth of fantastic action here at Brno. We definitely were not disappointed by what we've seen this evening. And Noj and Nej, you've got to love those two names. They're just about going to finish together, 11th and 12th on the road. But Mari Sabdi, that's got him into the championship battle. 9 points now between Wittfurt and Sabdi at the top. Mackenberg not too far behind either.
Yeah, setting itself up for quite a thrilling finale. But obviously, here's your provisional results. Mari Sabdi, Sinan Günay, Marvin Mackenberg on the podium. Sven Mackenberg, Luciano Wittfurt. Heaven having a really good round there in 6th. Vigneron, Julian Kunze with the recovery drive up the order into 8th after starting this race from pole position. Villacravi and Mikael Lapanek rounding out the top 10. What do you think of that recovery drive, by the way, from Julian Kunze, as we'll see the rest of them filter their way through? Obviously, having the jump start, dropping back to around about 20th position, obviously getting themselves involved in that incident with Balázs Nagy as well, and still managed to recover his way comfortably inside the top 10.
Yeah, it's an incredible drive. I mean, I think he might be slightly disappointed because of that incident he had towards the end of the race, but he was quite a ways behind P7 in the end anyway, so I don't know if he would have been able to catch and gain any more positions. So maybe P8 was his maximum, but even still, he came out of that pit lane 23rd, 24th, so to finish home P8 is an incredible recovery drive, and I mean, he'll probably be glad that he's not in the championship fight, because that could have been a lot more costly than it was. But Mari Sabdi, incredibly controlled. That's now 2 wins in, what, 4 days now for him?
Yep. Obviously cleaning up Road America and now taking top honours here in the McLaren 720. Obviously, one of the Mercedes getting themselves onto the podium. That one in the hands of Sinan Günay, and Marvin Mackenberg leading his brother Sven Mackenberg across the line in 3rd. Your podium here in the 3rd round of the championship. Of course, the RaceRoom Rank Championship, the GT3 Pro Series, comes to a close at Brno, but we'll focus our attention, as we always do, on the next round, which is, of course, the Nordschleife. It's not just the GT3 Pro Series that we're racing around here. Of course, you've got the MX-5s and the KTM, where you'll have to put up with Dara once again.
Yeah, looking forward to those KTMs. It's going to be an exciting one. We've got a couple of drivers in that championship battle like we do in this GT3 series, but yeah, I think all 3 of these championships, the Mazda MX-5 Cup, the KTM GTX Trophy, and the GT3 Pro Series, all 3 of them are going to have fantastic finales in the next 3 weeks, and I just can't wait for them. They're going to be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it's a completely different ballgame going racing around the Nordschleife, as it has been for each of our circuits. All 4 of them completely different to the last. Most, Road America, Brno, all complete, all in the rearview mirror. Ahead is the Nordschleife, and if you've been watching, if you've enjoyed it, we would like you to come and take part. Of course, we've been seeing the entry list growing and growing and growing for each round that we've been taking part in. Lots of people behind the scenes taking part in the leaderboards, taking part in unbroadcasted races as well. There is so much action on RaceRoom. So go and download it from Steam. Go and get yourselves involved in this racing. It's absolutely fantastic. And hey, maybe even you'll see Dara out on the racetrack soon. Yeah. Go on.
Ooh, I mean, if I can get a wheel in the next few days, then absolutely. Nice. But I do not trust my own server. There's a reason I'm sat here talking rather than sitting down very comfortably in a lovely chair, moving a steering wheel. So, yeah, maybe I'd be in one of the splits further down, because of course you've only seen the top split here this evening. There's been many more splits further down with drivers who haven't quite got the pace, but still very quick in their own right. So yeah, I'd be one at the bottom splits, but you know, still a lot of fun. If you join, you'll be with guys who are competitive with you. And yeah, I mean, if I could, I definitely would, because it seems like a lot of fun to do.
Certainly so. Well, of course, we'll see you all in a week's time for the finale of the MX-5 Cup. A couple of weeks after that, we're heading into the KTM Crossbow. Of course, the finale of the trophy there, and then of course the GT3 Pro Series in 3 weeks' time at the Nordschleife. Obviously, you should follow everything on RaceRoom when it comes to social media-wise, and obviously in the game, because then you'll be able to see if we do any of those cheeky ranked special events like we did when we did the 2-hour of Road America on Saturday. Either way, from myself, Lewis McGlade, from Dara Thacker, that is us done for the evening. You'll be able to put up with Cameron Roger and Zach Sweeney in a week's time for the finale of that MX-5 Cup. But of course, it will be Christo bringing you the broadcast as always. So thanks to Captain Coffee. Until next time, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you then. Very nice. Goodbye.
Do you also feel the same as this car enthusiast? He's reached his vehicle dream, but suddenly the original black wheels seem a bit boring. A colourful detail would add a lot more pep. And a little eye-catcher to match the paint would make the car perfect. Customization options don't only transform the wheel to visually match the vehicle, but also provides one-of-a-kind look on the road. The wheel color, rim protectors, center caps, valve caps, and even the wheel bolts can be configured and designed individually using style components of the new BBS Unlimited wheel system. And here's how it works. The BBS Unlimited base wheels are available in a total of 8 different colors, whether it be a glossy, satin or polished finish, or from a deep indigo blue to racing gold to a rich bronze. Rim protectors are a colorful detail to visually enhance the wheel while preventing damage from curb contact. In addition, the rim protectors can easily and quickly be replaced and renewed at any time. In total, 6 different designs are available. The center cap completes the wheel. So how cool would it be if it could also be customized? BBS Unlimited Style makes this possible. It's available in 56mm and 70.6mm diameters and can be applied in a variety of ways with the BBS logo. The center cap is available in 2D or 3D embossing, as well as in several color variations. And with the 3D rotation cover, the BBS logo remains visible to everyone, even when the car is in high gear. The valve caps complement the wheel in 6 different colors. This gives the individual wheel an even more coherent look. You can even choose the wheel bolt in the last step to match the wheel. Available in black, silver, and even titanium. With the help of the BBS Unlimited style components, you're able to create a work of art out of a conventional wheel, according to your own wishes and ideas. Just take a look at our configurator, and after a few clicks, you can already start designing the perfect wheel for your vehicle. Do you have any questions about customization? Then contact the Wheel Expert now.